Silver spoon wasn't born lucky. Black cats and broken mirrors for me. Never had a love, never had a break, never had no money. Black cats and broken mirrors for me. I was raised in the shade of my own black cloud. Try to run away everywhere I go. Trouble just keeps raining down. I'm so time broke. Here on the bottom, but I've got company.
Looking at the 7.3 today. So basically what I'm thinking is, like I said, I've got a fuel clog or something somewhere, so I'm not getting fuel pressure under load. Thinking about pulling this tank out, seeing where I'm at on it, see if it needs to be cleaned. There's probably no telling what in it. I don't know that it's ever been taken off. I know I've never taken it off. So this is a relatively easy-ish job. It's basically bolts up here for these straps, and right there is one of them. And then you've got your fuel line. You'll need a puller for the fuel line, and there's 2 lines on it. So there's not a whole lot of fuel in here, so I'm gonna drop it out and see what's in it. If you're not getting proper fuel pressure, the first thing you might as well do is pull the tank off, because it's highly likely you've got some sort of clog or some sort of problem in the tank. So that's always the first place you should start when you run into this problem. Okay, I'm taking these bolts out. We've got these level wheels here, so you can see the top of the tank. You get 2 fuel lines connected and the level sensor. You'll need a one of these to pull the fuel lines off, and then we'll get the rest of the tank pulled out. I was hoping to find a clog in here, but everything looks very, very clean, surprisingly clean actually. Got all the parts down there from the old filter on this thing. The lines are clean, so while I've got it off, I'm gonna get the fuel out and pressure wash the tank, clean it out anyway since we're here. So I found absolutely nothing wrong in the fuel tank. It was extremely clean. I really didn't expect that because I've never pulled it off. I figured it would at least have something that needed to be worked on in it, but it was perfectly clean. So it was time to move up to the fuel bowl, because I don't have a back tank on it. I mean, it has the back tank set up, but I took it off a long time ago because the selector valve is out. So that's another project. So time to go to the fuel bowl. Alright, so we know we have a fuel pressure restriction. So we've been in the tank, nothing wrong there. The tank looks clean, so next thing I'm going to do is take this cap off. I don't have the proper tool for this, so I'm using a screwdriver. Not recommended, but it works. We're gonna see what's in this fuel bowl and see if maybe our problem is somewhere in here. I want to eliminate all possibilities before I go diving into a lift pump issue. Bowl actually looks pretty clean so far. Okay, so we took this part off. You want to clean it up pretty good before you pull it off. Don't drop any dirt or tools down in these holes. Stuff you some cleanish rags down in there, and I'm probably even going to put some tin foil over them just to keep it all safe. Definitely don't forget those rags are in there when you go to reinstall everything. Now, the lift pump is right here. Considering the fact this fuel bowl is pretty clean, I got a feeling we're looking at a new lift pump. It's kind of what I'm thinking. Probably needs a lift pump, and maybe that's the reason we're not getting the proper fuel flow. Also, I've got a couple leaks down here. Well, one leak, I guess, I need to address while we're down here. Taking this orange piece, this orange boot out here, a lot of times what you're going to find when you get into this, if you've got a lot of miles, a boot that's all torn up and worn out, this needs to be replaced for sure. because if not, it's going to suck dirt in there. Another thing you might find is that this orange gasket on this turbo is cracked or pinched or worn out, and if that's the case, then you're not getting a proper seal and you're losing boost pressure. So at this point, pretty much decided that it needed a new lift pump because there didn't seem to be anything else that I could find. This is the lift pump out of an old body style 7.3. On the back here, you've got a banjo bolt that goes through a part that's connected to your fuel lines that go into the back of the motor. You can see that right here. You can take that bolt loose. I think it's 1.25 inches, and it's pretty difficult to get to if you've got a wrench laying around that you don't mind messing up. It makes it easier if you can bend it a little bit to get in there, but if you just got a standard wrench, you can get to it. It's just a lot of really short little turns. So this sets down in the motor right here, this plunger, and there's an eccentric on the camshaft that when it goes around, it moves this plunger at the bottom, and that's what pumps your fuel. You can see that right here whenever I pulled it out. And here's the hole where the plunger goes down. Right down in this hole I can feel the camshaft. There's an eccentric on the camshaft that operates the plunger on the bottom of this fuel pump. Right there. This is what all of this looks like underneath. And this is the valley here. So whenever you replace a mechanical fuel pump in a 7.3, you've got to be very careful. Once you pull that banjo bolt off, you've taken all your fuel lines that go to the bowl, replace all those fuel lines. You might as well. I got 2 foot of fuel line for like $1 a foot. It's $2, and I cut it up and I made new fuel lines for it. And these are your fuel lines coming off the back here. I just went ahead and replaced all the fuel lines on the back because a lot of them were really smushed and cracked and looked like they've probably been leaking. So it's good. You can get this stuff real cheap. Just go ahead and cut you some new fuel lines to connect this bowl in, top and bottom, and also on this post over here, just to ensure that you don't have any leaks and everything's gonna go back together right. You're gonna take the bolts out here and here once you've taken everything else loose, and this is gonna be sitting down in the motor. Now, if it's been in there a while, if this is the first time you've ever changed a fuel pump, it's likely that this is seized up. Very common that this snaps off into the motor and the plunger falls down into the into the motor. I hear if that happens, it's not the end of the world because that oil pan is very deep and it usually doesn't cause a problem. Usually these parts will settle down in the bottom of the oil pan, but you know, at the end of the day, you really don't want to have metal floating around in your oil pan. Whenever you pull this out, you don't want to bend it back and forth or do too much twisting because you will snap that off. This pump in this 7.3 was actually replaced about 6 years ago, so it hasn't been in there that long. It was pretty snug, but I was able to very carefully wiggle it, and I finally kind of broke it loose and it came out. It wasn't too bad, but if it's been in there a while, if this is the first time you've ever replaced a pump and you get a couple 100,000 miles on that thing, you're gonna have to be really careful. I've heard people say to once you take everything loose, get a breakover bar and turn the motor and let that eccentric bump this thing out a little bit. I've heard that works. I've never tried it, but whenever you put the new fuel pump in, it's a good idea to put some grease around this, so that way, you know, 6 years down the road, if you're changing it again like me, it'll come out easier. Okay guys, so that's my lift pump replacement video.
that didn't fix all my problems. I think I've got a possibly a messed up pressure regulator. So that's what we're going to next, but the lift pump did get changed, so that's another step down. So if you have any questions or comments on doing that job, just let me know. And hopefully we'll get this thing up and running and all lined out here pretty soon.